Uh, so. Hello, everyone. This is Sidekickjason with another Q&A. So, sorry about that first little part there. Getting everything ready. Um, so, a couple of things. First off, today is a pretty big day for my channel. Not this channel, my original channel. So, my original channel just passed 100,000 subscribers, and I just can't get over it. It's crazy. This number is just insane. So, I'm really grateful for you guys and for all the fun we've had over the past, I mean, I've been on YouTube for nearly 10 years. My series has been running for about, oh, let's see, was it, yeah, about 6 years now. So it's been really crazy just to see um, how everything's gone. 3 years ago at this time, I was at 3,000 subscribers. So, a lot of growth in 3 years, and it's been really amazing. And I appreciate all you guys. It's been so much fun getting to know all of you. Just going through the day, I'm doing a little giveaway on my channel and scrolling through the comments. It's one thing to see the numbers on a YouTube video, like, oh, that got 10,000 views, 20,000 views. And it's like, oh, that's cool when you look at the numbers, but it's really cool to think about, like, no, these are actual people who are watching, and that's what I've really just enjoyed reading your comments about why you subscribe to my channel, because it's fun to remind myself that you guys are actual people. You're not just numbers, and seeing, like, the influence that I've had and the reason why you guys have subscribed, and I've just really enjoyed it, and I've appreciated the support you guys have given, and it's just been so fun. And I hope I can continue to make great content for years to come. And I hope that you guys can enjoy this Q&A, and I can answer some of the questions you guys have asked from before. So yeah, let's see. Okay, so today we are going to be covering Big World, Big Adventures. So, kind of picking up from the last Q&A live stream we did on this channel from a couple of days ago. I've been kind of busy with the semester started on Monday, and I was getting things ready, trying to make that video for 100,000 subscribers. So I haven't had the chance to get back to these, and I hope to try and finish these up as soon as possible. So yeah, we've worked our way through, and now we're at Big World, Big Adventures. So a couple of things before we dive into Q&A. Just going to repeat some things that I talked about in the last Q&A with the topic of Big World, Big Adventures. So first off, I've got very strong opinions about this, as people have seen my tweets on Twitter, and I've voiced my opinion, and it's caused a lot of contention amongst the fandom with Thomas. And I just want to share a couple things. First off, if you don't have the same opinion as me, that's totally fine. Don't think that I'm trying to, like, alienate against you or call you out, or tell you that you're wrong or anything. These are just my opinions, first of all. Um, and you are more than welcome to have your own opinions. If you like Big World, Big Adventures, that's fine. Like, you are more than welcome to do that. I've just got my opinions, and in this Q&A, I'm going to answer and share my opinions. So don't feel like I'm attacking you or anything if you disagree or have other opinions otherwise. Because I have noticed over the past year that there is a portion of the Thomas fandom that actually does really like Big World, Big Adventures. And I've noticed that part of the fandom generally are people who enjoy children's shows beyond just Thomas. A lot of the people that I've seen in the fandom who are really strongly opposed Big World, Big Adventures, Thomas is usually kind of their only childhood or preschool age show that they watch. And so, seeing it changed and altered has been upsetting to them. Generally, people I've seen that like other shows like My Little Pony and so on, generally, they don't seem to have opposition towards Big World, Big Adventures. They like it. And so they're, to sit there, like, it's not everyone hates Big World, Big Adventures. There are plenty of people who like it. And so, just please, especially in the chat, be respectful of people's opinions. Let's have civilized discussions with this and whatnot. And so I'm going to answer these questions and hopefully do the best that I can and share kind of my thoughts, because I do have a lot of thoughts on this. And so, yeah, let's dive into it. All right. GTSH Productions, TNF Fan 3264, Thomas Pandit Fan, Thomas Mario Fan 11, Jet the Hawk 1994, the Brenda and the Brendan Branchline Productions asked thoughts on Big World Big Adventures in general. Okay, so this I remember now. I stopped the last live stream because this is a big question, and now I'm remembering why I didn't immediately pick up the next day. So yeah, there's a lot to discuss about this, kind of in general. I think my biggest concern with it is that it really does, you know, they these changes that they've made, they're kind of done, and the way that they've talked about it and all these press releases and videos and stuff is they really talk about that Thomas had a problem and that the brand itself had a problem and that they needed to fix it, and Big World Big Adventures is their solution. It's going to save the brand. It's going to bring Thomas back front and center. He's going to beat out Paw Patrol now. He's going to and they've really kind of put a lot behind this, thinking that this is going to be the savior to their brand. And I think the big issue is that I think it's a solution to the wrong problem. I don't think that the show had an issue and that the show needed to be changed. I think the brand, I think, had an issue, and I think that needed to be addressed. But I don't think Big World Big Adventures was the solution to that problem, and I think that's the big issue. So looking at Thomas as a brand, kind of what was going on. So if you look at Mattel's, Mattel's a publicly traded company, and they have quarterly reports that you can go see on their websites and stuff. And if you look at those quarterly reports, you can see that it is mentioned. They don't give specific numbers or anything for these specific brands, but they do talk about some of their decreases in sales have been attributed to decreases of sales in Thomas. And they specifically mentioned that, when they highlighting it to stockholders, saying that Thomas was one of the reasons why they had lower sales this quarter and whatnot. And that's gone on since I believe I believe it was 2015 was the last really positive year Thomas had when it came to sales. And the thing is what they've done is that they looked at it and said, okay, so Thomas is declining. Paw Patrol has taken off. How do we get Thomas to beat out Paw Patrol? How do we get Thomas back front and center? And so their idea was, I think it was also influenced too by a lot of the articles you'll see that criticize Thomas. There's the ones that talk about how the island of Sodor is this utilitarian, or I can't think of the right word. Basically, that Sir Topham Hatt is this authority figure that almost he runs the island like a dictatorship. That there's not diversity on Sodor. Really that Thomas is far too conservative in a lot of ways. Far too old school, and just hasn't caught up with the day and age. That's kind of a lot of the articles that have been written and whatnot. And I think the people that are in charge that kind of instigated these changes, a lot of them were kind of listening to some of these critical articles, which is a huge problem because, so for those of you who don't know, I'm a marketing major at one of the top 20 business schools in the United States. So I don't think I know everything by any means, but I would say that I know at least something about business in general. And I think the problem is that, well, one of the things that we've been taught in our classes is that there's kind of three groups when it comes to your customers, your audience. You have the love group, the swing group, and the hate group. And the love group are obviously the people who absolutely love your brand. They advocate for it. They love the product, and they'll tell everyone that they love about it. They faithfully use it. The swing people are people who don't necessarily always buy that product. Maybe it's a child that likes several different preschool brands, and Thomas is just one of them. They kind of swing through all the different ones. And the hate group I would definitely consider to be some of these articles and things that have been written where people have really strongly criticized Thomas for what the brand has been over the past 75 years. Well, nearly 75 years. And so what we've been taught in our classes, it's kind of just a common saying that they say is sell to the swing group, because that's the largest group, sell to the swing group through the eyes of the love group. But I think that that's where they went wrong with this, is instead of, looking at why do people love Thomas? What are Thomas's strengths? How can we get, fans of like preschool age kids in general to love Thomas, through for the same reasons that there are children who absolutely like love Thomas, like and that's why they use the phrase "sell to the swing group through the eyes of the love group," and they just straight up say ignore the hate group, like don't worry about them, don't let them, don't even give them thought and whatnot. I think that that's kind of the big issue that happened with that. Because I don't think that the TV show had a problem at the time. The brand had a problem, but not the TV show. Specifically, the real issue I think with the brand was the toys, because especially if you look at these reports, they're talking about sales for Thomas have gone down. If you look at, like, okay, now Thomas isn't that like big in stores anymore, if you notice, but back in the day, if you looked around when a new special came out, like let's say King of the Railway came out. And if you were a preschool age kid at that time, or the parent of a preschool age kid at that time, and you're buying, Thomas related products for your child who loves this brand, think about how much money you spend and where you spend it on these different products. A DVD is 10, maybe $15 US dollars. But if you look, like, I'm thinking Trackmaster sets that they had at the time, a pack of Trackmaster Connor or Caitlin or Steven, like those 3 packs were roughly $15 a piece. So if you bought all 3 of them, that's $45 right there. I think actually they might have been $16 at the time. That's not even including the big play sets, or the different like take and play items or wooden railway items and whatnot. So when you're comparing like the DVDs, that versus the toys, most of the revenue that comes in for Thomas is the toys by a long shot. It's not even close to. I mean, the DVDs are little to nothing. I mean, if in all honesty, the show of Thomas is not. It's more of an advertisement for toy sales, and that's what's made Thomas really successful and been really profitable for over the years. And so the problem I think Thomas was dealing with at the time, since 2015, and I think it correlates, Mattel, because they acquired all, well, they acquired Thomas as a brand, but they had also acquired all the different toy lines. So they were the sole producer of Thomas toys, because that, they were able to manufacture them in house, because now Thomas was under their umbrella basically. And so they, back in like probably 2013 is when they started this initiative, because it was now that they were all under. Before, the toy lines were kind of competing against each other. If you think back to like in my childhood, you had Tomy, you had Ertl, and you had Learning Curve, and there might be others that I'm thinking of, but those are like the main 3 I'm thinking of at the time. Kids kind of picked a range and they stuck to it, type of thing. And these different, I mean, people, they had others too, like people had multiple of each one, but these brands, or sorry, these companies were really fighting over to win kids over. And so they were trying to make the best product, like, hey, come buy wooden railway instead of diecast. And they would really, I mean, they tried to sell them in different stores. They would try, like, and they would try it. It was almost, it was really a competition between all of these companies to win over the Thomas market in a lot of ways. And that competition really drove up the quality of products, because one, there was a quality threshold that obviously, Britt or who owned the brand at the time had instigated. But on top of that, they were really trying to win the kids over to stick with their toy line and whatnot. And so now that Mattel, back when they acquired the brand, had all of the toys under their umbrella, they were really able to. I believe the idea was that they could keep. I think that this was their goal with Thomas. They bought the brand and said, okay, now that we've got, it's our own brand, no one can tell us what to do when it comes to the manufacturing these toys, and we can manufacture all these toys in house. if we keep sales constant, but we decrease the cost to manufacture these toys, we're going to make a larger profit and therefore make more money, and Thomas will become a more profitable brand overall. Sounds great conceptually, but in actuality, it obviously didn't turn out well, because then what happened is they decreased the quality, they cheapened it to make it easier for manufacturing. As you can see, they made Trackmaster 2, which all of them use the same chassis, and same with Take and Play, or yeah, Take and Play as well, switching to the bigger chassis as well. That was all the same and whatnot, and kind of some quality changes also going on with Wooden Railway at the time, eventually switching to wood and whatnot. As they've done these changes, their goal was to keep sales constant, but sales have been dropping. And so it hasn't been the DVD sales. Well, at least I don't believe. I don't actually have the numbers, so I'm kind of guessing on that part, anyways. I don't think it had anything to do with the show, because I think the show was doing pretty well, especially if you compare it to what was going on in seasons 13 through 16, where the show the show was absolutely dull, like as dull as you can be. And so that was kind of the image that people had of Thomas. And so they were spicing things up between seasons 17 through 20. And I felt like the show did really well to kind of bring Thomas forward, and to be very engaging with kids in this day and age and whatnot, while still being true to Thomas. I felt like they did a great job of selling to the swing group, to the Eyes of Love group, for the show anyways. They kept Thomas to its roots. They brought things back. They really tried to capture what made Thomas great in the TV show and bring that to kids in this day and age, which honestly I think was like an amazing strategy. Because if you think about it, the first kids that is like, especially in the US, who grew up loving Thomas, though, look, like, that we're talking late 80s, early 90s. Look at how old they are now. They're parents themselves. And so it's a great marketing tactic to focus on making the show similar to how the parents remember, because the parents are going to be like, of course I'm going to buy Thomas toys and watch the show with my child, because it reminds me of my own childhood there, especially if it's entertaining for adults too, and it kind of takes them back to remembering watching the model series back in the early days and whatnot. That's a great marketing tactic, because you're trying to sell the kids, but it's parents who have to pull out their wallets and pay for the toys and for the DVDs and whatnot. And so I think it was an absolutely great strategy that they were going in that direction. But the toys were what was the problem there. And so as they've decreased the quality of toys over time, I think that there's been major losses. And you can tell, because if you go into stores nowadays, like, obviously these stores are not buying the same quantities from Mattel that they were before. The toy selection on Thomas is shrinking rapidly. Almost every single time I've gone to a store in probably the last 3 years, their Thomas section has been slowly getting smaller and smaller. And a lot of Walmarts I've seen nowadays, it's not even like a set shelf space anymore. It's kind of like skewed and has other brands kind of mixing in. They no longer have enough products on the shelf to even like get a whole section of their own. Like, they kind of have to share it with others, and it's just not a good outlook for the brand as a whole. And so I think that was the problem. But this is what really concerns me about the brand, is that they had this problem here, and they obviously had issues with what was going on. And instead of fixing the toy quality to match the show, and therefore especially because the toys are obviously what's making money, the show is just an advertisement for the toys. So instead of fixing the toy quality, instead the people who are in charge of the show said, no, we'll make it better on our end. We'll go over the top. And then they've gone in a completely wrong direction, in my opinion. But the problem is that the toy quality still hasn't gone up. And the only analogy I can think of to best explain this is if you were holding a giant or like a long board, like a wooden board in your hand with your two hands, and one side was falling, like kind of weighing more than you had, like your left hand was kind of down. To fix it, you would bring your left hand up to balance it out. But instead, what they've done is they're like their left hand's falling with the toys, and with the right hand of the TV show is like, oh, we'll pick up the slack and we'll go higher. And what they've done is they've thrown the board now, and like I think it's a terrible mess. And honestly, I actually do legitimately fear for the future of the brand as a whole, because how can a brand, like, I mean, Thomas is big, but will it continue to survive with the direction that it's going? And I don't know, because if Thomas isn't making sales and it isn't worth it for Mattel may decide to sell it, or they might not, because it looks pretty bad for a toy company to decide to sell um, a brand that they acquired to make toys. It also looks bad for Mattel license out to maybe Tomy or some other brand to make the toys instead, to make the higher quality toys and whatnot. And so it looks bad. And I think Mattel wouldn't, they that might hurt them more image wise to try and sell. So who knows? I mean, they may just let the brand someday, if they can't keep it going forward, because it may cost too much to keep the show in production. But I don't know. I think it's not a good situation that they're in, and I think that they've made it a lot worse for themselves with Big World, Big Adventures. Um, Specifically, let's see. So, other thoughts on Big World, Big Adventure. So, I kind of talking about the background of what went into it. I think it. So, like I said, I think that the changes were completely unnecessary. I think just barely the brand was, kind of getting its reputation back of being higher quality. At least the TV show was, because obviously when a new season rolls out, it's not immediate that suddenly everyone's like, oh yeah, Thomas is number one, such a great uh, like such a great brand, like live not what am I thinking of, like over the top action, not that, just better than what it was in season 13 through 16. Sorry, I'm struggling thinking about what I'm trying to say with this. It takes a few years for people to realize the changes on that, because these episodes have to roll out and they have to get in circulation enough for people to see, because a brand, at least what I've been taught in my classes, and I think it's very true, a brand is not what you say about yourself, but it is how others perceive you. And so I think it takes a while for parents and children to perceive that Thomas isn't the same Thomas that was in season 13 through 16, where it's all this rhyming and very simple, really dull stories and a dull TV show. And so I think for it to liven up and become, if we want it, it takes a few years for people to realize those changes and whatnot. And so I think just barely people have finally, in the past 2 or 3 years, have really started to see that Thomas, is a lot faster in animation and stronger as a TV show. But they've been saying, oh no, it wasn't good enough. We have to go even faster. We've got to make it even crazier and more action packed and whatnot. And so I think that that's the issue, because it's like, how can you really say or have like really good data to prove that that's the right decision when you haven't given enough time for what you've currently done to work out? So yeah, I think that was kind of the problem. I think it was a little rushed. They should have waited out to let the TV show as it was currently going run its course and change the brand image in people's minds. So yeah, that was another thought going into the background. So I think that the changes were unnecessary. Now, thoughts on the idea of, well, I'll talk about a number of aspects with Big World, Big Adventures, with these changes and whatnot. So first of all, Thomas traveling the world. I don't think that that's a bad idea necessarily. I think that it's really, it could be really cool and really like a fun way to see, especially like, okay, when I heard Big World, Big Adventures was going to have Utah in the movie, I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool, because that this is where I'm from. Like, that's cool that Thomas is actually going to be coming here. But it's pretty disappointing to then see that it doesn't really resemble anything like real life. It doesn't even seem like Thomas is actually there. And it's a little frustrating to see that everything kind of looks like Sodor, and the fact that it's the same buildings, just different colors, and that the rolling stock's the exact same. like very, it doesn't really feel like you're away from Sodor in a lot of ways because so much of it is still like Sodor. And so it doesn't feel like they're actually in those countries or those places. They call it Big World, Big Adventures, but like when you watch it, the world kind of feels small because everything looks so similar, and it's the same. So I think it was poorly executed, would be the way I describe that. I think that. Um, Sorry, lost my train of thought. My wife is calling. 1 second. So yeah, I think that Thomas traveling the world is cool, especially learning about all the different railways. Because I would have loved to see a Thomas episode where Thomas talks about the railways that we have here in America because they are different than that on Sodor. That's something that as a kid that I noticed immediately because it was like this is what Thomas is in the TV show. I watched the train outside at the railroad crossing, and it doesn't look anything like Thomas. And so I think it could have. It was a good idea, but could have been really well done. I don't think it ever should have been the main TV series. I think that was a big mistake. Maybe as like a spin-off, a mini series or something. Maybe it could have been like a learning segment in there. If they and they could advertise the heck out of it if they wanted to get that promotion and draw the attention that obviously they were seeking by rebranding it. They could have totally done that, but maybe do a 4-minute learning segment on railways around the world and whatnot, and learning about life beyond Sodor, and then go have a normal high quality Thomas episode after that. I'm not opposed to having episodes be beyond Sodor or around the world. I just think that um, they need to be good quality episodes. You can't just say that it's a big world and a big adventure. You got to show it. You got to show that it's a good adventure, and that it's a big world to explore and see, and that it's worth exploring. So I think they did a poor job on that. Um, then when it comes to the motions, the faster pace thing, I think was a terrible mistake as well. It screams that they're trying too hard. Whenever you see all the stuff they've tried to do. Thomas jumping over Gordon's Hill, which is hilarious because 2 seasons prior, there's a whole episode about Hugo trying to fly and go over Gordon's Hill, and he can't because gravity actually existed back then. And then you have this flashy opening sequence, and Thomas is able to do it, and it makes it even worse because then at the end of the episodes, they're referencing the older ones, and I think they even reference a Hugo episode at the end of one of them, and so it's just really like children pick up on those inconsistencies, and it just frustrating with that. And I think the faster pace was poorly done. It's trying too hard to keep kids' attention constantly, rather than by winning them over with solid, good storytelling and letting Sodor be awesome. Let children the swing, like I said, let the swing group see what the love group loves about Sodor, but instead it's like no, we gotta pick up the pace. We gotta be better than Paw Patrol. We've gotta make everything faster and flashy, so that way they won't pick up the remote and change the channel, type of thing. And I think that was a terrible decision because they've got what is it, a 7-minute runtime in these new episodes, and the episodes just feel so fast that like you don't actually like, it doesn't even feel like you sit down to watch the episode or like get um, in the mindset that you're watching a TV episode, because it's so fast and constantly go 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 that it's like, oh, okay, now we're over. Everything has pacing issues all over the place. Like nothing actually sinks in. The morals don't even sink in. That they have to literally explain the morals at the end, which I think is a terrible change from the direction Thomas has had for the past 73 years, where the morals would speak for themselves within the stories, and that was one of the things that made Thomas really popular. Anyways, um, so then when it comes to the diversity in Big World, Big Adventures, I think again, it's a good idea, just poorly executed. I think having equal representation of male and female is not a bad idea. And I think that it would be great to have more episodes highlighting female characters, but you don't do it by introducing more characters. You start with what you have, have more episodes about Mavis and Daisy and Rosie and, these female characters that are already there. Put more highlight Annie and Clarabelle more, introduce more female characters and coaches, but don't just like shove two of them into the main cast and then then kick two of them out. I think that was the worst thing that they could have done, because I think it sends a bad message. I said this in the past live stream that the like having I think it sends a terrible message to kids who that really enjoyed Edward and Henry, saying, "Oh yeah, they had to be out of the main cast because they had to make room for these girls to come in and whatnot." Because then that leaves the child wondering, why does my favorite character get kicked out just because of their gender? Like, I don't know. It's a hard thing. I just think it was very poorly done. If they want to highlight and make female characters more a part of the main cast and more prominent, they need to do it over time and really establish them, make them characters that are worth being in the main roles. I hated it as a kid when Emily was shoehorned into the main cast, and I definitely, if I was a child now, would absolutely hate what they've done with Nia and Rebecca. But yeah, so those are, I've talked about a lot of various aspects of Big World Big Adventures in general. So I hope that covers it all. I know several of you asked that question, but I'm going to try and move on to the next question. That way we can keep things going. But I hope that explains it enough. If you have more questions about Big World Big Adventures that I haven't answered in this and subsequent questions, be sure to leave it in the comments below, not in the live chat, but in the comments. That way I'm going to try and go through for my last live stream and answer all the questions that are asked during all the previous streams that haven't been asked before. All right. Lightning asked thoughts on Rebecca. So I like Rebecca in general. I don't think that she should be a main cast member. Like, I think she could have earned that over time. I don't think that her alone was worth replacing Henry. I think that a lot of fans have a negative opinion about her just because she replaced Emily, not Emily, Henry, not because of her as a character in general. I think people in general actually like her. I think she's more fleshed out than Nia. She isn't as much of a Mary Sue type of perfect female character as Nia often is depicted as. I think Rebecca's debut episode is one of the strongest in season 22. That one was a good, even though it was, it still had the pacing issues and was a little fast, but overall, it was a good. It felt like a solid Thomas episode, and having Rebecca learn that it's a problem when you arrive too early as well, and sometimes you can go too far in the other direction and whatnot. So I think that she's a good character. I think she has a lot of potential. Her look isn't bad. The yellow is kind of a little too much. I don't like the red in front. That's probably the only thing I actually don't like about Rebecca, is the fact that she's red there in the front, and so many of the new characters all have that, which is a shame because it matches the poor quality toys in that regard. They don't look quite as much like Sodor characters in that way. But anyway, so yeah, Rebecca I think is good. I one flaw I think that they have with her is that they depict her as pulling 3 express coaches at a time, kind of pulling like a local mainline train, and Gordon's pulling 6 or more for the express, but they try and they keep saying that Rebecca is an equal match for Gordon, but it's like, well, they're not really showing that. So I think that there are some things that they could do better. I think she's a lot of fun. It'd be cool if in the future her and Henry had an episode together. It doesn't have to always be Gordon, because Henry's someone also who is big in size and who could compete with her. It'd be cool. I think it'd be great if there was an episode with her and Caitlin. 2 big express engines that there's a lot of potential with that. So Best Engine Ever was I think a great episode, and I think they could do something really fun with Rebecca and Caitlin in the future. But we'll just have to see what happens. Hopefully, they do more with her. I like that she has a role on Sodor, a purpose. I think that her in Tidma Sheds was poorly done, especially Henry leaving. Like, it didn't explain why was there a need for her to come to Sodor, and then why was she going to take the spot in Tidma Sheds of all places. So yeah, I think that could have been better addressed. But yeah, anyways, that's my thoughts on Rebecca. All right. Merit train boy. Oh goodness, these. I feel like I'm taking so long on some of these questions. Well, this is another big one. Uh, it's kind of hard because these are like generic questions, but a lot of people have asked them. Anyways, so Merit Train Boy, Stephanie Henry, Peter Sam 13, Hank the Red Engine, Thomas Mario Fan 11, Brandon Bernie, and the Brendan Branch Productions asked, "What are your thoughts on Big World Big Adventures the movie?" Um, I think it's hard to say. There were some good parts in the movie, but overall it was pretty bad. Especially when you compare it to like the movies that came in previous years. Like Lost Treasure was like a Pixar level type movie, and I think that they did an absolutely great job with that. I think the problem was well, then you had in subsequent years, The Great Race and Journey Beyond Soda, which I don't think were as good a quality. But then when you look at Big World Big Adventures, those are so those are really good in comparison to Big World Big Adventures. I think the plot is very poorly done in Big World Big Adventures, the movie. I think that it's kind of silly why Thomas wants to travel the world. Like, I mean, yeah, there's that line that he said in the railway series, but it's very obvious what Thomas meant there. He wanted to get out of the train yard and be able to see the world around him, not actually literally go around the circumference of the earth. Um, but yeah, so I think that was kind of, I don't know, and you could just tell that Andrew Brenner had a tough time writing this film because he's a good writer. Not a good writer. He's a great writer. You've seen his work in the other films, and you can see that he knows what he's doing. You could just tell that either what was mandated to him by people higher up, um, like obviously he didn't he wasn't as passionate about the story. The plot just doesn't really flow. You could tell that he just had so much he had to do. I think the best way to describe it is, if you're in an English class as a student and the teacher comes in and like gives you a writing prompt, but gives you very specific instructions on the outline, like characters must do this, they must go here, like very specific, and then you have to write a story um, around that. There's only so much you can do. So I think Andrew Brenner did the best that he could, but honestly, he had to meet so much criteria and had to do so many things, and have Thomas go all the way around the world and whatnot. I think that was really difficult for him to make a coherent plot that fit that, and I think he did the best that he could. But it still isn't great or that fabulous. I think that Thomas wanting to prove to everyone that he's little engines can do big things because he's going to go around the world, and then suddenly he just ups and leaves Sodor. I think it's hard for children to relate, and it's hard. I mean, it's just hard for the viewer to relate from what am I thinking of? From a children's standpoint, relating to the characters, because Thomas doesn't think logically in the movie. His decisions don't match that of what a normal person would do. Like a normal person would not just abandon their for not really a good reason, would just abandon their whole life and go on some crazy world adventure and not think twice about their home. Because Thomas never thinks back just on Sodor throughout the whole movie, and then at the very end he's like, oh, not really wanting to cross it because that means his adventure's over type of thing. And it's like, no, like at some point logically, Thomas should have been, at least somewhat homesick. He should have had a second thought about, like, I wonder what's going on Sodor. Like, maybe if he didn't even miss it, at least he'd wonder what was going on. And I think that was part of the problem, is that Thomas just doesn't, he just leaves behind literally everything that he knows, and then he travels the world. And then it's kind of hard to relate to Tom, especially when he's singing about, the song where he's sorry to Nia. It's hard to follow along with him because, like, he's apologizing to Nia, and he feels so bad, and so he's, traveling around the world trying to find her. And it's like, Thomas, you just, like, straight up abandoned literally everyone you've ever known in your entire life, and you're not giving a second thought about the fact of, like, what are Annie and Clarabelle or Percy thinking? You literally abandoned them. You're like, it's kind of dumb. Like, I hate the ending is so positive about, like, yay, Thomas is back. If I, like, Annie and Clarabelle are probably mad as heck that Thomas just up and abandoned them for a long time. And I get, yeah, they're happy that Thomas is, alive, if anything, or that he's come back. But at the same time, like, you know, logically, some people would be pretty upset that Thomas just straight up abandoned them. And so it's hard to relate to Thomas. And the movie just has a lot of flaws. The flow of it is really bad. I think there's some good moments in it. I laughed so hard at the attaching the fish trucks to the express. Like, I thought that was really clever. I liked that little plot there, and then how Flying Scotsman, they come past Flying Scotsman, and Gordon finds out what happens and whatnot. So, like, there were some good moments. I thought that the trucks that were the bridge collapse, that one scene in South America, that was a fun sequence. Like, really, like, the sequence was really entertaining and whatnot. But, like, it's just, I'm not a good movie overall. But yeah. All right, just give me 1 second. Gotta fix some things really fast, and we'll get into this question. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, sorry, I was just going through the chat. There was some stuff going on, and so I tried to clean it up a little bit. So, okay. Anyways, back to the question. So, let's see. How long have we been going for? I only want to try and go for an hour. Okay. All right. The Ghostly Red Engine asked, "What are your thoughts on new characters of Big World Big Adventures so far?" They're poorly done, kind of like a lot of Big World Big Adventures. I don't know. It would be much more entertaining if the international episodes were similar to Sodor episodes, in the fact that other characters besides Thomas are get to be the leads. Like I think it'd be much more entertaining if Ashima was the main character of a story rather than Thomas. If they wanted to do like the first episode of each country, Thomas is the main character. Like, that's great. That's an introduction one, but like expand to the other characters. How boring would the series have been if all the episodes were just Thomas being the main character? It's Thomas and friends because Thomas can't be the whole series. I think at least having a 50-50 split between Thomas being the main character versus other main characters is at least a minimum to make the series really good. So yeah, I think that's kind of the problem is that all the new characters are all just supporting characters or they're just background characters and they don't really do much. But they could be a lot of fun if they like were able to get more leads and do more things and really have a lot more personalities than just being cardstock. I mean, some of the characters do have personalities and they've done some good things with them, but they've always had to be minor characters because of that. So I think that would be the big thing. Uh, there's no character that really resonates with me, and I don't really enjoy a lot of them personally. I think the one character I relate to the most is probably how do you say it? The character in the picture on the left, because he's actually based on a character on an engine that is literally an hour from my house that I grew up at. So I live close to the where the Golden Spike took place, which is the largest, the biggest moment in railroad history in the United States, where they connected the first transcontinental railroad. And so I think it was cool to see him, actually like, I mean, he looks a lot like, a real steam engine I've seen in my life. I even went this summer and saw, so he's based off of Jupiter. And I actually I was standing on Jupiter back early this summer. And it was just kind of funny because it was like, here I am on this engine, but the actual movie that Thomas did, like there was just so much potential. Like as a child, I would have been thrilled at the idea, but it's just, again, poorly executed. So yeah. Merrick Trainboy and the new Trains Duck asked, "What are your thoughts on the engines now showing signs of body movement, or also known as bouncing?" It's kind of them swaying. The picture on the right is a little excessive. The trucks did it in Big World in one of the songs in Big World Big Adventures. I don't mind it in songs, honestly. Like with the different like in some of the musical sequences in Journey Beyond Soda, like I really didn't mind. Like the songs can be funny and silly. I like their music videos in a way. They if they want to be creative. I had no issues in Lost Treasure with all the crazy trippy stuff that they had with Never Overlook a Little Engine, and I really didn't mind the trucks, doing kind of some crazy things in the song of Who's Thomas in Journey Beyond Sodor, and like I didn't mind them really swaying in the song in Big World Big Adventures. It's when you watch them in in what's supposed to be like real life swaying, it's just it kind of takes you away from the actual like being there. Like it's I don't know, they become less like engines and trains, and it's kind of scary because they're like you have humans there, and I don't know if I were a human and there were trucks able to sway around like that and cause damage, I would be pretty afraid. I mean, obviously, troublesome trucks have always been able to cause damage and whatnot, but like to this extreme, like you could just like a troublesome truck could just like throw itself over if it got upset with a workman that was loading it or something. Like I don't know. Like it's just the inconsistencies too. I think is a huge issue with it. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't think it actually helps. I think that it was kind of a lame excuse to like. I mean, they said that um, the um like they did it to make the show more action packed and faster and to keep obviously they don't want kids changing the channel, and so that's why they kept it, or that they implemented it, but basically I don't know, like I just don't think it was necessary. Again, the problem was with the toys, not with the show. So I think all these changes are completely unnecessary, especially I think it's like, I mean, how much they have to spend to pay Jamfield to animate the bouncing and whatnot, on top of already having to animate the facial movements. Now that they have to animate the characters swaying with the what they're saying too. What a waste of money. They could spend that money on making the sets look better, making, especially the international sets look more like the places that they are, making Sodor bigger. I think that's one of the big issues too, is that they said that, Thomas, like the big quote that they like to use is that one kid that basically said that, pretty much, what was it, the he Thomas, he's a train but he never goes anywhere type of thing. Well, of course a kid's going to say that when the generic countryside on Sodor is as bland as can be, and that's all they ever show. When you watch, like season 3 or 4 of the classic series, like, no, nothing's just generic countryside. Like, it feels real because, like, it feels like things have not necessarily set order, but like they're everywhere is a place to go. There's no just emptiness on Sodor. Even their throwaway sets that they did to, like, just to fill in things were really well done. And so I think that would have been a better way to solve that, where it, instead of saying Thomas doesn't go anywhere, show that Thomas does go places, on Sodor, not just traveling through generic, plain, boring countryside, but that he's constantly traveling past all these locations. If you look, especially in the classic series, like how many locations are on Thomas's branch line. Thomas's branch line in reality is not actually that long. Like, I mean, they compacted a lot of amazing ideas and they feel bigger and larger than what it probably would be in real life. And yeah, I think that's what they would have had would have done better at doing that. So yeah. All right. Merritt Train Boy asked, "What is your opinion on Thomas as the narrator in the Big World Big Adventure series?" Um, Completely unnecessary. I would have much preferred if they just eliminated, the the narrator altogether, and they kind of did that in certain episodes and in the movies and stuff. Like, I mean, you really didn't see, or not didn't see, you didn't hear the narrator very often because they were using the visuals to explain the story, which is fine. Especially like in Big World Big Adventures, the movie, there is no narrator and whatnot, and I don't think that's a flaw of the movie, honestly. Um, I prefer a narrator, honestly, because that's just what made Thomas Thomas, and I thought it was a good way to establish, kind of, to easily explain things and not have to make everything so visual and bog things down in the story, because they could just easily say, now Thomas is here, or now Thomas did this, and that's why he's here, rather than having to have some dialogue that explained it. But having Thomas as the narrator is terrible. And I find it interesting because a lot of TV shows moved away, or at least from what I've seen over the past 10 years, have moved away from having the main character talk to the audience. I mean, in the early 2000s, it was really popular, like with Dora the Explorer and whatnot, where the characters would talk straight to the audience, um, and whatnot. But I think that got really boring for a lot of kids, and most TV shows have phased away from that. And so I think it's kind of silly that they've now suddenly done it with Thomas. Um, like, I mean, having it done every once in a while would be cool, like as a novelty. I think I would have enjoyed that as a kid. I mentioned one time, when they released, the music video for, oh, what is it? The Big World Big Adventures song, opening song, the original version. I'm trying to think what the name of it is. Not the one that, because they altered the lyrics to fit the Big World Big Adventures, but initially, maybe someone in the comments can tell me what the name of that song actually is. Um, but yeah, like, I didn't mind that because, like, as a kid, I would have thought that was really cool. That, like, wow, Thomas is talking, like Thomas is singing along, like, how fun. But the fact that it's every episode is overused. I think a lot of the problems with Big World Big Adventures too is that there's too many requirements in the stories now. Like, it has to have a fantasy sequence. It has to be, certain ones have to be international. Certain ones have to, like, they just have too many requirements on them, and I think it bogs down the story. And that was kind of the problem with seasons 13 through 16, is that the creativity was bogged down because it had to be three strikes. It had to be easy. Set friendship into motion. That's the name of it. Thank you, people in the chat. Yeah, like, I didn't mind that at all, having Thomas, sing along with it. I thought that was really fun. But it's kind of the novelty of the scarcity of it. Having Thomas do it not frequently is what makes it interesting. So I think that that was a huge mistake having Thomas narrate. They should have just gotten rid of the narrator in general. So yeah. Okay. So that's it for this Q&A. So basically, there's other sections, plenty of other sections that we still have to go through. I mean, we've made it through a couple now, and we're just going to keep going. I'm going to try and do another one soon. Obviously, I was going to try and maybe start into another section because I mean, it's tiring talking about the same thing for so long with Big World, Big Adventures, and I mean, I only answered a few questions, and I mean, I've taken up I think nearly the hour. So I apologize for taking so long on some of those questions, but you know, some of them were so generic. It was kind of tried to cover a lot of material that way to give a satisfying answer. Um, so yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. There's plenty of sections left. We're going to cover behind the scenes of my series. We're going to talk about the Thomas the Tank Engine community channel. The Thomas Creator Collective is another big section that I've got lots of questions on that. We're also going to talk about the toy lines. I mean, there's still plenty to go. I think we might be about halfway at this point, maybe a little more through all the questions, but there's still plenty to go. So I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully we can keep doing this more, and we can, you know, keep having fun with this. I appreciate you guys joining in on the chat and having fun with it. We won't have another topic probably that's quite as controversial that would cause debate within the chat, so things should be pretty tame from here on out. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I appreciate you guys subscribing to my channel. It's been great reaching 100,000 subscribers on my regular channel. I do plan sometime soon, at least within a week or so, to do a live stream to celebrate on my normal channel, a live stream on my normal channel to celebrate 100,000 subscribers. And there should be some special guest stars appearing with me. So yeah, you guys will just keep a lookout. I'll definitely post it beforehand so that way you guys know the date and time and whatnot. But I just got to work a couple details out first. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you guys later.